but it's certainly going to be one for the foreseeable future. There will have to be some tectonic shift either in national politics with the parties where California kind of comes along, or a crisis in California which gets people here to vote differently. I think California's business competitiveness is poor, and I think it's being covered up by a lot of Bay Area technology success. But if you look at productivity growth in California, it's very narrow. Like there's a 10% of the economy here that has productivity growth, and the rest of it doesn't. The rest of the economy doesn't. And that 10% is paying all the taxes, and that 10% is covering up a lot of the problems with the other 90% in business in this state. If that 10% ever fumbles, if you look at California, it's been driven, there's always real estate there to drive it underneath. But you look at the Cisco's and HP's and Intel's that once drove it, they're gone, largely. And then came Apple's and Google's and so forth, which are maturing. And now we have Facebook and we have the social media and some of that type of stuff that's doing. All of these business life cycles are quicker than they used to be, so these will all mature quicker than they have. And once they get mature, then the question is, do they drive what comes next? Is there something next to drive the growth in California? And if there is something else, and there might be, that follows the Facebooks and LinkedIn's and Twitters and whatnot, if there's something to follow them, then California might be okay. If there's not, then the fiscal problem in this state is going to have a huge fiscal hole, because 50% of the taxes are being paid by 1% of people, and that is just not sustainable. And so it's going to be a problem. And frankly, a lot of Democrats recognize that in Sacramento. They recognize that problem, but they're, the traditional Democratic interest groups are too strong to overcome to do something about it within the Democratic Party. Next question. Over here.
From your perspective, how important is it to get that corporate tax rate to say a flat 28% and allow you to move the deferral and be able to move funds back? And then it's kind of a two-part question. In May issue of Fortune magazine, Sheila Bair wrote an article about how Jeb I'm going to mispronounce his name, Snarling or something like that, the representative from Texas.
Oh, Henson.
Yeah, yes, thank you. That was way off. And Elizabeth Warren could get together on tax reform, and I realize it has to go past this election cycle, but the idea being that I think they were somewhat extreme on each end, and they could bring people together, and there was enough that they agreed upon to make that happen.
Okay. First of all, I do think it's very important to get that top line corporate tax rate down for competitiveness, and to allow companies that have money parked overseas to bring it in at a much lesser tax rate than we currently do. And I think those are two things that will fuel a lot of growth amongst the C Corp sector within the United States. And I, for one, was fully prepared to look at many of you who were my constituent companies in the eye and say, yeah, I understand you're going to lose a lot of this stuff that you in the life insurance industry, or you in the technology industry, or you in whatever like in terms of R&D, but we have to do what's good for the country, not what's just good for an industry within the country. So I think you very strongly have to do that, and frankly, I'm a car dealer. That's what I was in my career. LIFO inventories are hugely important to car dealers. I looked at car dealers in the eye and said, if I can get tax reform and getting rid of LIFO inventories as part of the cost of that, gone. We got to do that in order to get this country on a more competitive basis. I think that's important. Elizabeth Warren and Jeb Henson. I know Jeb Henson very well. I know Elizabeth Warren a little bit. Could they get together? Yes. I don't know that those personalities mesh. I'm not sure that's the team to do it. The other thing to consider, and this is inside baseball, but that's part of what I think you want to hear from me up here. Jeb Hensarling has aspirations to be Speaker or something like that at some point. You go make a deal with Elizabeth Warren, the Tea Party faction is probably not going to vote for you for Speaker. You probably lose them. And so internal Republican Party politics will impact his ability to do things. You need someone who says, I don't want to be Speaker. This is what I want to do. I want to create a legislative. Paul Ryan's out. Paul Ryan does not want to. We've tried to get Paul Ryan to be Speaker or majority leader, minority leader. Every term I was there, we tried to get him, he won't do it. And because he's a policy guy on policy. He wants to get good policy done. And so you need somebody who really is not interested in personal ambition, but wants to get good policy done. And Elizabeth Warren, I think, has some of the same issues on her side. She is a rock star in the Democratic Party right now. She is the leader of the progressive movement. Yes, Bernie Sanders is the presidential candidate, but if she ran against him, she'd knock him off the podium in about a half a second. So she has tremendous admiration and respect from a large portion of the Democratic base. And again, if she makes some deal and gives up those principles in the world as it is today, the progressives might go find a noose and put her over a tree and hang her. And so she would have to be interested in making policy and understanding that I'm willing to make a deal. And I don't know her that well, so I can't tell you as securely as I can with Jeb Hensarling that I think it's not likely to happen, but I think it's not likely to happen. There was one more question over here, and then I think I get the hook. Is that correct? This is the last question.
John, which one or two?
Wait till you get the mic, just so I don't have to repeat the question. But yeah, people often don't. Internal party politics are important, and where people are jockeying, and outside of the caucus rooms, nobody knows what that stuff is. So, yeah.
John, which one or two of the current presidential candidates on the Republican Party do you like and why?
Yeah, I was waiting for that question. I have not endorsed or supported anybody. One of the things that I'm doing in my post-congressional career is I fill in for Hugh Hewitt on his nationally syndicated talk radio show, and I'm his main fill-in guy. And we interview all the presidential candidates, so he hasn't staked out a position, and neither have I. And to be honest with you, if all 16, there were 17, there are now 16 Republican candidates were there, and I had to vote for one today, I'm not 100% sure who I would vote for. So I'm not really completely ducking the question, but I will say this: you have to be impressed with Carly Fiorina, and we all know her here in California better than the rest of the country does because of the race she made 5 years ago. But she was so that we thought that was going to be really close, and she ended up losing by 12 points. And so it was a huge disappointment to a lot of people. Of course, Meg Whitman was on that same ballot, lost by 25 points. So she way outperformed Meg Whitman. But man, she, if any of you didn't watch that debate a couple days ago, it was, in both of those debates, she absolutely blew everybody away. So you have to look, even with no experience, you have to look at someone that's that smart, that articulate, that good on her feet, and by the way, has the ability to attack Hillary Clinton without having a gender card thrown at her as a very, very strong opponent. That being said, within Washington, everybody thinks it will be either Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, or Scott Walker. Now, Scott Walker is not getting it done. Scott Walker, to me right now, looks like Tim Pawlenty of 4 years ago, a Midwestern governor with a great record in their purple state, who just can't seem to get to communicate and create excitement outside of their upper Midwest base. But that's kind of where the DC intelligentsia thinks at the moment, that at the end of the day, why did I not say Donald Trump? Because again, the general feeling is that that his supporters are very excited about him, and there's almost nothing he can say or do that will turn them off of him, but that he has a ceiling. And that once the field narrows from 16 down to 10, down to 5, down to 3 or 4, that all those people who are supporting those other candidates will not go to Donald Trump, they'll go somewhere else. And that Trump will probably be in the mix towards the end, but is unlikely to be the person that winds up at the end. At least that's certainly what people in Washington desperately hope is the case. So with that, I thank you all very much. And I'll be there.